Section 2 of Modern Magic. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Little T. Modern Magic, a practical treatise on the art of conjuring, by Professor Hoffmann. General principles of sleight of hand applicable to card tricks, Part 1. Among the various branches of the conjuror's art, none will better repay the labor of the student, whether artist or amateur, than the magic of cards. It has the special advantage of being, in a great measure, independent of time and place. The materials for half its mysteries are procurable at 5 minutes' notice in every home circle, and even in the case of those tricks for which specially prepared cards, etc., are requisite, the necessary appliances cost little and are easily portable. Two virtues not too common in magical apparatus. Further, the majority of card tricks are dependent mainly on personal address and dexterity, and as such will always be highly esteemed by connoisseurs in the art. Before very large audiences, indeed, the spectators being at a distance from the performer, much of the effect of a card trick is lost, which is probably the reason that, of late years, tricks of this class, with a few exceptions, have been rather neglected by professors, and that many feats which in the times of Conus and Comet were numbered among the sensations of the day are now almost entirely forgotten. We shall endeavor, in the following pages, after explaining the principles of sleight of hand applicable to cards, and giving instructions for some of the best of the more commonplace feats, to revive the recollection and, we hope, the practice of some of these brilliant performances. The cards. The adept in sleight of hand should accustom himself to the use of every description of cards, as frequently none but the ordinary full-sized playing cards may be available. Where, however, the choice is open to him, he should use, in the actual performance of tricks, cards of a smaller and thinner make. The common French cards answer the purpose very well. Among cards of English make, some of the best for the purpose are the small cards of the French pattern made by De la Rue and Company for use in France, and those known as the Tankerville cards, both imported by Peck and Snyder, 124 Nassau Street, New York City, which are thin, well made, and of small size, but of the English pattern. In any case, it is well to use only the Piquet pack of 32 cards, the 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s being removed, the complete whist pack being inconveniently bulky for sleight of hand purposes. To make the pass, sauter le coup. The effect of this sleight, which is the very backbone of card conjuring, is to reverse the respective positions of the top and bottom halves of the pack, that is, to make those cards which are first formed the lower half of the pack come uppermost, when those cards which are first formed the upper half will of course be undermost. It is used by card shoppers, immediately after the cards have been cut, to replace them in the position which they occupied before the cut, and from this circumstance derives its French name. There are various methods of producing this effect, some requiring the use of both hands, some of one hand only. These we shall describe in due order. First method, with both hands. Hold the pack in the left hand lengthwise, with the face downwards, as if about to deal at any game. In this position the thumb will naturally be on the left side of the pack, and the forefingers on the other. Insert the top joint of the little finger immediately above those cards which are to be brought to the top of the pack, and which are now undermost. and let the remaining 3 fingers close naturally on the remaining cards, which are now uppermost. See Figure 1. In this position, you will find that the uppermost part of the pack is held between the little finger, which is underneath, and the remaining fingers, which are upon it. Now, advance the right hand and cover the pack with it. Grasp the lower portion of the pack lengthwise between the second finger at the upper and the thumb at the lower end, the left thumb lying slightly bent across the pack. Press the inner edge of the lower packet into the fork of the left thumb, so that the 2 packets will be as shown in Figure 2. Next, draw away the upper packet by slightly extending the fingers of the left hand, at the same time lifting up the other edge of the lower packet, till the edge of the 2 packets just clear each other. See Figure 3. When by the mere act of closing the left hand, they will be brought together as at first, save that they will have changed places. Do this at first very slowly, aiming only at neatness and noiselessness of execution. At the outset the task will be found somewhat difficult, but gradually the hands will be found to acquire a sort of sympathetic action. The different movements which we have above described will melt, as it were, into one, and the 2 packets will change places with such lightness and rapidity that they will seem to actually pass through each other. A slight momentary depression and elevation of the hands, apparently a mere careless gesture, in the act of making the pass, will completely cover the transposition of the cards, which in the hands of an adept is invisible, even to the most watchful spectator. The above is the most orthodox and the most perfect method of making the pass, and if the student be proficient in this, he need trouble himself very little about the remaining methods, which are inserted chiefly for the sake of completeness, being very inferior in all respects. Whenever in the course of this book the student is directed to make the pass, this first method will be considered to be referred to unless otherwise specially expressed. Before quitting the subject of this method, we should mention that it is sometimes necessary to cause the 2 halves of the pack to kiss, that is, to bring them face to face. This is effected by turning the original upper packet face upwards in the act of bringing the transposed packets together. When the pass in the ordinary form is fairly mastered, this slight variation will occasion no additional difficulty. In this, as in all other branches of prestidigitation, the student will find it of the greatest possible advantage to practice before a looking-glass. By this means, better than any other, he will be enabled to judge how far his movements succeed in deceiving the eyes of a spectator. One caution may here be given with advantage. The student of legerdemain must learn to perform all necessary movements without looking at his hands, unless for some special reason he desires the spectators to look at them also. In every case, wherever the performer desires his audience to look, his own eyes must take that particular direction, and wherever he desires his audience not to look, he himself must carefully abstain from looking. Let us suppose, for instance, that a person has drawn a card and has replaced it in the middle of the pack. The performer desires to bring it to the top, for which purpose it is necessary to introduce the little finger above the card in question, and to make the pass, as above described. When the card is replaced in the pack, the eyes of the drawer are naturally directed towards it, and if the performer were himself to look downward at the cards, it would multiply tenfold the chance of detection. He should pause for a moment, and looking full at the person who drew the card, ask, "You are certain that you will know that card again?" or make any similar observation. As he speaks, a natural impulse will draw the eyes of the audience to his own face, and he may then make the pass without the slight necessary movement attracting the least attention. It is hard to believe, until tested by actual experience, what apparently obvious movements may be executed under the very noses of an audience, if only their attention is diverted at the right moment by a dexterous use of the eye and voice of the operator. Second method, with both hands. Holding the pack in the left hand, as directed for the first method, grasp as before the lower portion of the pack lengthways between the second finger at the upper end and the thumb at the lower end. Move the left thumb, which now takes no part in the operation, a little below the pack to be out of the way. Then slide the lower half of the pack a little to the left, and the upper half to the right till they just clear each other. See Figure 4. When you will be enabled to place what was originally the upper half undermost, and vice versa. This is the theory of the process, but in practice the necessary motions are not nearly so distinct. As you grow more and more expert, the necessary movement from right to left should become gradually smaller and smaller, until at last it is almost imperceptible. You must study to reduce this movement to the very minimum, and in order to do this, endeavor, after you have once seen clearly what it is you have to do, to keep the hands together as much as possible. Let the edge of the palm of the right hand rest gently but firmly on the first 3 fingers of the left hand, and let the contact thus made form a kind of hinge or fulcrum for the movement of the hands. When you become expert, you will find that the mere outward movement of the 2 hands upon this imaginary hinge, the cards being held lightly and allowed to accommodate themselves to the movement, is sufficient to produce the effect. We have above recommended you to keep the hands together as much as possible, but there are circumstances under which an ostentatious separation of the hands is equally effective. Thus, holding the cards as above directed, you may make the pass by apparently merely cutting the cards, lifting, in truth, the under instead of the upper half, the latter making way, by a slight and momentary extension of the left hand, to allow it to pass. You may also, when holding the cards as just cut, that is half the pack in each hand, make the pass in the act of bringing them together. To do this, you should hold the right hand packet in such manner that the thumb and second finger may project a full inch beyond the face of the cards. At the moment of bringing the 2 packets together, which should be done with a sidelong motion of the right hand from right to left, this thumb and finger grip the other packet and slide it out towards the left shoulder, leaving what was originally the right hand packet in the left hand. If this is done neatly, the movement is so subtle that the keenest eye cannot detect that the 2 packets have changed hands. Having effected the change, you may take your own time as to placing the new uppermost packet on the other. The circumstances of each trick will indicate the cases in which it may be desirable to adapt either of these variations. Third method, with both hands. This is very similar to the first method, but much less neat. Take the cards, as in the former case, face downwards in the left hand, but instead of the little finger, insert the second and third fingers immediately above those cards which are to be brought to the top of the pack, and draw the first and fourth fingers below the pack. See Figure 5. In this position, the lower half of the pack is held as in a forceps between the second and third and the first and fourth fingers. Now cover the pack with the right hand as directed for making the pass by the first method, but in this instance grasp therewith between the first and second fingers at top and the thumb at bottom the upper half of the pack. Raise this upper half slightly, to allow room for the movement of the lower half, and at the same moment slightly extend the fingers of the left hand. See Figure 6. This will make the lower packet describe a quarter of a circle. As soon as it is clear of the upper packet, by reversing the motion, that is, closing the fingers of the left hand and at the same time lowering the right hand, the two halves of the pack will be again brought together, but that half which was originally undermost will now be uppermost. The movement will be understood more clearly on an inspection of the diagrams A and B, Figure 6. A representing an in-view of the two portions of the pack in their original position, and B of the same in their transposed position, the original lower portion being in each case indicated by the darker shade. Fourth method, with the left hand. This is almost the same as the method last described, save that the left hand only is used. The upper packet, instead of being held in the right hand, is in this case clipped between the ball of the left thumb and the point where the thumb joins the hand. In other respects, the movement is the same. Fifth method, with the left hand. Take the cards in the left hand as before. Insert the third finger above the cards, which are to be brought to the top, and which now form the lower half of the pack, and close the remaining three fingers on the top of the pack. See Figure 1, but suppose the third finger inserted in place of the fourth. Now extend the fingers which will make the upper part of the pack describe a semicircle. See Figure 7, and at the same moment press downward with the thumb the left top corner of the lower packet. This will tilt up the opposite end of the lower packet and give room, as you again close the fingers, for the upper packet to pass into the lower place. See Figure 8. To bring the original upper packet, that is, the one with the 6 of hearts at the bottom, from the position indicated in Figure 7 to that which it occupies in Figure 8, it is pressed slightly forward with the middle finger, and is thereby made to perform a semi-revolution, the third finger acting as pivot. The packet is by this means turned over endways. That is, the end of the packet which was originally nearest to the performer is now farthest from him, and vice versa. The movement is by no means easy to describe, but if followed step by step with the cards, will be readily understood. This method of making the pass has a peculiarity, which renders it specially useful in certain cases. When the upper half of the pack describes a semicircle, as above mentioned, the bottom card of such half is in full view of the performer, though the spectators see only the back of the cards. The performer thus becomes acquainted, unknown to his audience, with that card which, after the pass, becomes the bottom card of the pack, which knowledge may occasionally be very useful. The movement of the cards in this mode of making the pass is very noticeable, but the circular sweep taken by the upper packet so confuses the eye that the audience must be extremely keen-sighted to detect the effect of the movement, which, if neatly executed, has the appearance of a mere flourish. A quick sweep of the arm from left to right as the pass is made will greatly assist in covering the transposition of the cards. Some perform the pass last described without causing the upper packet to make the semi-revolution above mentioned. The first finger in this case does not participate in the operation, but is left extended beyond the upper end of the pack. Sixth method, with either hand. Take the pack in either hand, as if you were about to stand it on end on the table, the backs of the cards being next to the palm. Insert the third finger between the two halves of the pack, and draw the second and fourth fingers behind the pack. In this position, the uppermost half of the pack is held between the third finger and the second and fourth fingers. clip the lower or front half of the pack at its two top corners between the thumb and the first finger. See Figure 9. Now extend the second, third, and fourth fingers, which will carry with them the upper half of the pack. As soon as it is clear of the lower half, again close the fingers, thereby bringing the upper packet to the bottom. See Figure 10. This mode of making the pass may be employed as you place the pack on the table, the movement for that purpose serving to cover that by which the cards are transposed. If no table is at hand, a quick movement of the hand and arm from right to left at the moment when the pass is made will be found to answer equally well. Seventh method, with the right hand. This is a mere makeshift for the pass proper, though its effect is the same. It is performed in picking up the cards from the table after they have been cut and left, as is usual, in two heaps. The performer picks up, as in the ordinary course, the bottom half of the pack, which should properly be placed uppermost after the cut. But, instead of picking them up in the usual way, he picks them up with the second, third, and fourth fingers under, and the first finger above the cards. In placing them apparently upon the upper heap, he tilts up the right hand edge of that heap with the tip of the first finger, and with the remaining fingers slides the heap he already holds underneath. See Figure 11, so that the cards are again precisely as they were before the cut. This sham mode of making the pass is rarely used by conjurors, but is said to be frequently employed by card sharpers. To force a card. By this phrase is signified the compelling a person to draw such card as you desire, though he is apparently allowed absolute freedom of choice. Your first step is to get sight of the bottom card, or, if you want to force a predetermined card, to get that card to the bottom. Having done this, take the pack in the left hand and insert the little finger halfway down, in readiness to make the pass. Make the pass by the first method, but before uniting the two halves of the pack in their new position, again slip the little finger of the left hand between them. The two halves will now be united at the end which is towards the spectators, but divided by the little finger at the end nearest to yourself. And the original bottom card, which is the one you desire to force, is now the bottom of the top heap, resting on the little finger. Using both hands, with the thumbs above and the fingers below the pack, spread out the cards fan-wise from left to right, at the same time offering them to a person who is to draw, and requesting him to select a card. Keep the little finger of the left hand still on the face of the card to be chosen, or you may now use, if more convenient, the same finger of the right hand, both being underneath the cards. As the person advances his hand to draw, move the cards onward with the thumb, so that the particular card shall reach his fingers just at the moment when he closes them in order to draw. And if you have followed these directions properly, it is 10-to-1 that he will draw the card you wish. It may possibly be imagined that forcing is a very difficult matter, and requires an extraordinary degree of dexterity, but this is by no means the case. The principal thing against which a beginner must guard is a tendency to offer the particular card a little too soon. When the cards are first presented to the drawer, the pack should be barely spread at all, and the card in question should be 10 or 15 cards off. The momentary hesitation of the drawer in making his choice will give time. By moving the cards quicker or slower, as may be necessary, to bring that card opposite his fingers at the right moment. Should the performer, however, miscalculate his time, and the card pass the drawer's fingers before the choice is made, he need not be embarrassed. Still keeping the little finger on the card, he should sharply close the cards, and making some remark as to the drawer being difficult to please, or the like, Again, spread them as before, and offer them for the choice. A moderate degree of practice will make the student so proficient that even a person acquainted with the secret of forcing will have to be very wide awake in order not to take the desired card. You will, however, sometimes find a person, suspecting your design and wishing to embarrass you, suddenly jerk his hand away from the card which he was apparently about to take, and draw another from a different part of the pack. In the great majority of tricks this is of little consequence, inasmuch as there are numerous ways, which will be hereafter explained, ascertaining what the drawn card was. But there are some illusions which depend upon the drawer taking a card similar in suit and number to one already prepared elsewhere for the purpose of the trick. In this case it is, of course, absolutely necessary that the card drawn should be the right one, and as even the most accomplished performer cannot always be certain of forcing a single card, another expedient must be used in order to ensure success. This is made absolutely certain by the use of what is called a forcing pack, that is, a pack in which all the cards are alike. Thus, if the knave of hearts is the card to be drawn, the whole pack will consist of knaves of hearts, and the drawer may therefore do his utmost to exercise a free choice, but the cards which he draws will certainly be the knave of hearts, and no other. Where more than one card is to be drawn, as for instance in the well-known trick of the raising cards, the pack must consist instead of similar cards throughout, of groups of 2 or more particular cards. Thus 1/3 may be knaves of hearts, 1/3 aces of diamonds, and the remaining third sevens of clubs, the cards of each kind being together. With the aid of such a pack, it will require very little skill to ensure one of each sort being drawn. End of Part 1 of Chapter 2. End of Section 2. Recording by Little T.